Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hi everybody, welcome to the show, The Court of Public Opinion from the Garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton is behind the camera. We're recording today, Wednesday's show, on Tuesday afternoon, where we have had one hell of a hot day in Adelaide. I think 41, 42 degrees. Mind you, in Adelaide, for as long as I've been here, and that's well over 40 years, you would have probably about 15, 16, 17 really hot days over 40 degrees over the summer months. Perfectly reasonable. I just feel sorry for all the animals. You know, the wild animals, the koalas and possums out there. I don't know how they possibly keep cool or where they get water to drink. But anyway, it's a very hot day today. Anyway, as I say, it's nature. Caroline got me some bunting, Australia Day flag bunting, to put up around the room, and I forgot it, left it up there with my glasses, by the way. But I do have my major, big 6-foot Australian flag, which is going up on the flagpole as soon as I can find somebody to help me. It's a bit dusty. Anyway, it'll be fine. Australia Day. Happy almost Australia Day, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Morrison is latest news. Heard it just yesterday afternoon. Scott Morrison to quit politics at the end of February. They haven't exactly given him an easy time since he ceased to be Prime Minister. But politics is a rough game. Rough and tumble. I don't know that you'd expect anything else. It's that sort of business. But he's going into private enterprise of some kind. Good luck. I think in some areas he got a dream run, in other areas he got a terrible run. But be that as it may, that's life. Ups and downs. Keeping a roof over one's head is getting harder and harder. Core Logic says that rents have hit an all-time high. Never before in our history have they reached these sort of levels. The average, that's the median, reaching $601 a week. Now that's just the average. You can imagine what the less than average might be. Sydney's the most expensive, being well over $700 a week. Hobart the cheapest at just over $400 a week, but nowhere is it easy. I think it's probably about $5.25 here in Adelaide, something of that order. Not easy. The international, and this is a little bit of good news, not that I've seen it reported anywhere, the International Garden Awards have come out, and Adelaide's Botanical Gardens has been judged to be the best in the world. Wow. Pete, did you know that?
No, I didn't.
No, you're not going to
hear that.
You're not going to see it in the popular media. You're not going to hear it on the popular radio. Not that radio seems to be in Adelaide terribly popular anymore. But anyway, I think that's a wonderful thing for those people who must work bloody hard to achieve that sort of result. Wow, the best botanical gardens in the world. Now tomorrow, Thursday, I don't want to frighten you with this, but tomorrow, the Australian population will hit 27 million. 27 million. I've just got used to saying 26 million. Now, Mark McCrindle, and I'm going to try and get him on the show on Friday, he's a social researcher. That's jeremycordo.com, live streaming from the dining room table with a 3-hour live radio program in which you are more than welcome to give us a call and partake. But it is ridiculous that Australia doesn't have a population policy. We are 20 years ahead of any of the forecasts that I've ever seen with regard to population. With immigration, if we continue to add 500,000 new migrants a year, we're going to hit 28 million next year. They originally predicted, I remember this one, that we would hit 28 million in 2045. 2045. We are 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, this is totally out of control. I don't know that it's sustainable. A recent survey of young people revealed that only 18% wanted to have children. And I take it to mean wanted to have children ever, which means 82% don't plan on having children at all. 82%. And a comparison with comparable countries reveal that immigration policies have become more and more controversial. That is not even to mention the illegal arrivals. Policies that end up challenging, threatening the culture of the host country. Not complementing it. England, France, Germany, Canada, Scandinavia. Countries that today, particularly for the locals, are almost unrecognisable. It comes back to the government of the day insisting on and vigorously defending the cultural value of the host nation. All of this is happening right now, right here in Australia. You remember my saying the other day that 70% of migrants fail a simple Australian values test. I can only assume, as these people are trying to get into Australia, that people have judged it not to be important. Well, I think we should go back and re-emphasise the importance of Australian values. Goes back to the thing we were talking about yesterday and the day before about underage marriage and people thinking they can send their 11-year-old girls off to the Middle East or Africa to be married or genitally mutilated. Australian values, I'm sure people would respond. You know, when in Rome, do as the Romans. Listening to 2GB and 3AW at this time of the year, and I do a lot of the time because I think they're great radio stations, one can't get away from the Australia Day debate. It's everywhere. No one seems to know or is curious enough to find out why the celebration is on this particular day in the first place. I rang 3AW and the young lady producing the program in the morning didn't know what the hell I was talking about. It's simple. The celebration of Australia Day has got nothing to do with 1788. Maybe a nod to the actual day. But it is about the cultural and national Day of Australia. This is the day, the 26th of January, when Australia became a nation in 1948. Now that was gazetted to come into practice, law, on the 26th of January the next year, which was 1949. Now that is very simply the day that we became a nation. Before this day in 1949, when I say this day I mean 26th of January, We all were British subjects. I mean, you can look at this, you can look it up, you can Google it and see for yourself. After the 26th of January 1949, we had our own passport. We were called Australians. That was our nationality. So obviously it's the day for Australian celebration. Australia Day. And yet we have this controversy because nobody has gone back, and I wouldn't have thought to do it. Somebody, because of this program, this posting on Facebook and the podcasting, somebody got in touch with me and said, look it up. You will see why it exists. Why doesn't the popular media do that? I know the ABC wouldn't do it, but other people should. These people, Cricket Australia, will not mention Australia Day. When the traditional test is played in Brisbane, won't mention Australia Day. Why? It's always been called the Australia Day test, as I can remember. Sport and politics don't mix, or shouldn't. Government House in Melbourne have removed from the Gazette Australia Day, and they have replaced it with an open day. These elites, the minorities, the Cricket Australia, the Tennis Australia, the lefties, they'll have their smoking ceremony. They will have their welcome to country, which we all know is just a joke. A joke. A stand-up comic who put it out there as a joke. Ernie Dingo, you know the story. Welcome to country. No cultural importance whatsoever. But no Australia Day. These are, along with the big corporates, the ones who would have voted yes in the referendum. The majority, that's we the people, have told them to pull their heads in. Yet they go on their merry way. The tail, ladies and gentlemen, is wagging the dog. I don't know how we put our foot down. If we had a government that had any chutzpah or patriotism or belief in Australia, it would be doing it. I firmly think it is the job of government to say the sort of things that I'm saying here. But there are other things to talk about. The Council of Small Business. Now, this is the peak body advocating for small business. Terrible story the other day. 43% of small businesses don't even break even. They don't break even. And small business, as we all know, is the backbone of the economy. That is a big worry. Taxes and excises and regulations and all of these things are working against the energy of our nation. The Daily Mail reports that Australia Post will now charge if we want to use cash. Pete, did you know that?
I didn't know that.
You go to Australia Post, they want you to pay if you're prepared. I don't think that's even constitutional. Legal tender. Extraordinary. The Dubai ports dispute continues. This is another drag on our economy. DP Ports telling a Senate committee a few days ago some interesting facts. We have 54,360 containers backed up around the country. We have the maritime workers who are already paid between $130,000 and $140,000 a year, now wanting a I think it started out 17, but over 3 years, it's 27%. A 27% pay rise over 3 years. Oh yes, and they don't want to be given those annoying drug and alcohol tests before they start their work in the morning or the shift. This is dragging on, and it's costing this country $83 million a week. That is what it is costing Australia, $83 million a week. And of course the unions who own the Labor Party are not having any arguments or discussions, as I understand it, with Anthony Albanese. Who the hell's going to solve that one? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm about out of time because I would like to run a little, I think Les sent it to me about electric cars. We'll have to find that. It's certainly startling if you're thinking about going out and buying an electric car. People just send this stuff to me. I don't know whether they send it to mainstream media as well, but I don't see it on mainstream media. Maybe you do in America or Europe, maybe. I don't know. But before we throw to that, can I just say happy birthday and happy wedding anniversary if it's a day of celebration? It's the 24th. Rubber-heeled boots or shoes were patented on this day back in 1899 by American Humphrey O'Sullivan. Who ever would have thought to put rubber, which would wear a hell of a lot better than leather, on the heels of shoes? Good move. Very good. Hope he made some money out of it. Brian Epstein signs the management contract with the Beatles on this day in 1962. The early 60s were great days for music. The Apple Computer unveils, or Apple Computer Inc. unveils the revolutionary Macintosh personal computer on this day in 1984. What a big clunky thing that was. Wow, things have moved on. Everything's Apple these days. 1965, Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister, Conservative Prime Minister from 1940 to 1945, then again from 51 to 55. During World War II, he was a writer, a Nobel Prize. Yes, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1953. He dies of a stroke at the age of 90. And funnily enough, on exactly the same day, in 1895, Lord Randolph Churchill, who was also a British politician, dies at just 45. Eskimo pie was patented by Christian K. Nelson of Iowa. He wasn't an Eskimo, by the way. An Eskimo pie. Never had one, have you? You, Pete?
No.
An Eskimo pie. That was in 1922. Lieutenant General George Baden-Powell publishes Scouting for Boys as a manual for self-instruction in outdoor skills and self-improvement. The book becomes an inspiration for the Scouting movement. That was in 1908. The lovely Ernest Borgnine, I talked to him more than once, American actor, Ice Station Zebra, McHale's Navy, born in Connecticut. He died in 2012, but born this day in 1917. The Russian city of St. Petersburg, renamed Leningrad, that was 1924. Neil Diamond, American songwriter, Sweet Caroline, Solitary Man, born in Brooklyn, New York in 1941. Adolf Hitler orders German troops in Stalingrad to fight to the death. That was 1943. And Sharon Tate, the beautiful Sharon Tate, American actress, Valley of the Dolls, etc., born in Dallas in 1943. Now, if Pete can find this bit on electric cars,
I'll find it.
You'll be mostly intrigued by this, I'm quite sure. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Jeremy Cordo. Peter Clayton and I'll be back tomorrow with the Court of Public Opinion. Don't forget Friday from 9 o'clock, jeremycordo.com, live streaming. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.
How is this even possible? EV makers are going bankrupt. Jeep's CEO just exposed EVs, dropping a brutal warning. He's basically hinting, stop forcing EVs on the common man. People are not happy with EVs. Jeep is unable to sell EVs, Ford is selling them at a loss to a tune of $36,000 per vehicle, and General Motors has lost more than $1 billion on EVs. All while Biden is constantly bringing policies to ban gas cars without thinking about the public. But why exactly are EVs not selling? Is Jeep CEO's threat a warning to EV owners? And should you buy an EV at all right now? If you thought EV makers were doing well, prepare to be shocked. So here's what exactly happened. EV companies are facing a huge crisis, and Jeep CEO Carlos Tavares is tired of the government trying to hide it. Carlos Tavares literally shocked everyone in a recent interview when he said, EVs are not going to get cheaper anytime soon. The decision to ban gas cars is completely dogmatic. Now, why should you care about this? Because if people aren't buying EVs right now, it could only mean two things for you. One, the market is going to go down and the prices are going to fall heavily, saving you thousands of dollars if you buy an EV in a few months. And two, maybe there's something wrong with EVs that no one's telling you about. But before I tell you about this, let's take a peek at Jeep's condition right now. Tavares, the big boss at Jeep, which is under Stellantis, you know, the guys behind Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, is basically calling out the entire electric vehicle industry. He's not just some random dude. He's a major player in the car world, and when he speaks, people listen. He's saying that everyone's been caught up in this EV hype bubble pushed by political leaders. But guess what? The bubble's about to burst. The reality, according to him, is that nobody's really buying EVs like they thought. We're talking overpriced cars sitting like ducks in dealer lots and companies bleeding money. He thinks that companies that are losing money on electric vehicles might not last past 2030. Imagine that, a whole bunch of car brands like Ford just disappearing because they couldn't keep up with the electric revolution. But wait, there's more drama. Tavares points out that two big events happening next year could shake things up even more. The US presidential election and the European parliamentary election. The outcomes of these elections could change how fast people start buying electric cars. Now, the Biden administration in the US is all for cutting down fuel consumption by 2035. But if someone like former President Trump or another Republican wins, they might just put the brakes on these impractical plans. And did you know who will face the consequences of this EV push? It's us. I mean, look, first, you have to buy an EV costing nearly $70,000. And then you'll have to pay up to $500 every month for insurance, and then the cost of repair for these EVs? Don't even get me started. All the big car makers are either stopping production or delaying EV launches. Jeep themselves do not have any good EVs on the market, and GM and Ford have also stopped production of the Silverado and the F-150 recently. The craziest part? Tavares is hinting that the government might be in on this whole thing. On one hand, you've got the Biden administration pushing hard for EVs, aiming for like 60% of all vehicle sales to be electric by 2030. That's ambitious. But Tavares is waving the red flag saying, hold up, what about the reliance on China for battery supplies? We're getting all the lithium required to build EV batteries from China, and things aren't looking good. Now, why exactly are people not buying EVs? And what exactly are EV makers hiding from you? About 40% of EV owners are ditching their EVs and going back to gas-powered cars. Yeah, seriously. Over 4,000 households in California who once were all about the EV life have gone back to gas and diesel. Can you imagine, after all the hype about EVs being the future? First things first, let's talk about home charging. You know how they say you can just plug in your EV at home and voila, you're set? Well, it turns out not so much. A lot of homes aren't really set up for this. And if you live in an apartment, good luck finding a place to charge. This is a huge letdown. The whole point of an EV is convenience, right? But now these folks are finding themselves stuck without a charging station at home. They end up having to rely on public charging stations, which are either scarce, always full, or broken. And don't even get me started on the range issue. EV makers promise you this dreamy range of 300 to 400 miles, but in real life, it's about half that. It's like ordering a giant pizza and getting a small one. You feel cheated, right? Plus, if you lived somewhere cold, that range drops by 30%. So people are so fed up with this range anxiety that they're trading their EVs for hybrids. Then there's also the issue of high repair costs with EVs. Let's take a real-life example that'll blow your mind. Picture this. A guy named Scott McFiggin dents his new Rivian. A minor accident, right? But wait for it. Fixing that dent cost him a jaw-dropping $22,000, and it took over 2 months. This isn't just an isolated case, it's a glimpse into the nightmare of owning an EV. Many repair shops can't handle their advanced tech, leading to astronomical repair costs and insurance premiums. In the US, the average annual repair cost for EVs is around $6,587. That's over $500 a month. You gotta take a new mortgage. In the luxury sector, the numbers are even more alarming. At Porsche, less than 37% of owners are thinking of getting another electric car after buying one. And at BMW, only 25.9% are considering another EV, down from 46.6% just 3 years ago. Consumer Reports found that EVs have 80% more problems than traditional gas-powered cars, especially with batteries, charging systems, and build quality. It's like buying a new toy only to find out it's already broken. Lastly, there's this whole thing about multi-car homes. A lot of EV owners also have a big, non-electric vehicle like an SUV. And guess which car they end up using more? Yep, the gas guzzler. It's just more practical for them. When you have different types of cars, each needs its own kind of maintenance, and the EVs need special care. It's like having a high-maintenance pet along with a bunch of low-maintenance ones. Over time, people find it hard to juggle and end up questioning why they even got an EV in the first place. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess. People jumped on the EV bandwagon thinking it was all rainbows, ponies, and sunshine. But now they're realizing it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's like buying a fancy gadget only to realize it doesn't work as advertised. Kind of a bummer, huh? As for Carlos Tavares' very own company Jeep, they too are not currently launching any EVs. They've announced some plans, sure, but it's all talk. They're talking about launching these 4 electric models in North America and Europe as part of their ambitious Dare Forward 2030 strategy. The goal? Hit 50% electric vehicle sales in the US and a full 100% in Europe by 2030, not to mention becoming carbon neutral at the same time. And for those of you wanting to buy a Jeep EV, I'd say wait a couple more months and then take advantage of the market crash. These are the best 4 models coming out this year. Number 1, Jeep Wagoneer S EV. This is Jeep's premium SUV getting an electric makeover. The S stands for speed, striking, and sexy. It's loaded with 600 horsepower and boasts up to 400 miles of range. Jeep claims it's so efficient you could drive from New York City to Toronto on a single charge. Number 2, Jeep Recon EV. This one's all about carrying on the legacy of the Wrangler, but in electric form. Expected to start production in 2024, it's designed to tackle tough off-road trails with 0 emissions. Think of it as the eco-friendly cousin of the Wrangler, complete with the rugged features you'd expect from Jeep. Number 3, Jeep Avenger EV. Targeting the European market first, this compact SUV is designed for off-roading capability with an all-electric range of about 400 kilometers. It's set to appeal to those looking for a modern, capable, and compact electric Jeep. Number 4, Jeep Wrangler 4xe. This model represents the transformation of Jeep's legendary 4x4 technology into the electric age. It promises even more power and quick acceleration, keeping the spirit of adventure alive. But here's the thing, despite all these grand plans, there's a sense that Jeep's CEO might be a bit hesitant about jumping headfirst into the EV market. Maybe it's the challenges other automakers are facing with EVs, like repair issues and consumer hesitancy. Or perhaps it's about ensuring the new electric models live up to the high standards Jeep owners expect. With the average price reaching nearly $70,000 and a poor charging infrastructure, should we really let the political leaders tell us what to do? Why can't we choose what's best for our needs on our own? But the main key here is, instead of just relying on EVs, we must focus on having more options and bringing the costs down for the average buyer. Tavares' warning is a wake-up call for the entire automotive industry. The race to electrification isn't just about who makes the most advanced EVs, it's about who can make them profitably and sustainably. The EV market is on the brink of a major shakeup. Companies that can't keep up with the financial and technological demands of this transition may find themselves sidelined in the next decade. The clock is ticking, and the future of many automakers hangs in the balance. Over to you. Will you ever buy an EV? Let me know down in the comments below. I just uploaded a video about groundbreaking news that could hurt the entire EV industry. Do check it out if you want to be truly shocked by what's about to happen with EVs.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.